Ted Bundy was unlike any killer America had ever seen before. He didn't look like a monster. He didn't sound like one either. He was handsome, charismatic, articulate, and ambitious. He studied psychology, worked in politics, and even gained acceptance into law school. He could hold a conversation, charm a room, and convince almost anyone of his sincerity. But beneath that polished exterior lurked something unimaginably dark, a sadistic killer who preyed on women with cruelty that shocked even the most hardened investigators. Bundy wasn't just another murderer. He was a paradox, a man who shattered the public's assumptions about what evil looks like. He forced America to confront a terrifying truth. Monsters do not always hide in the shadows. Sometimes they smile at you in broad daylight. This is the story of Theodore Robert Bundy, the charming law student who became one of the most prolific and terrifying serial killers of the 20th century. Ted Bundy was born in 1946 in Burlington, Vermont, under a cloud of secrecy. His mother, Louise, was an unmarried teenager. To avoid scandal, the family raised Ted to believe that his grandparents were his parents and his mother was his sister. The truth was hidden, but Bundy always sensed something was wrong. The lie planted early seeds of instability and resentment. As a boy, he was bright but socially awkward. Neighbors recalled strange behavior and obsession with peeping into windows, an early fascination with knives, and a detached, emotionless way of handling situations. Still, Bundy grew into a young man who appeared well-adjusted. He studied psychology at the University of Washington, performed well academically, and engaged in politics. He even volunteered at a crisis hotline, where ironically he helped prevent suicides alongside future crime author Anne Rule, who would later write the definitive book on his crimes. No one suspected that Ted Bundy was carefully constructing a mask that hid a growing, uncontrollable darkness. Bundy was skilled at living two lives. In one, he was the model citizen, well-dressed, articulate, and involved in politics. He dated steadily, and his longtime girlfriend described him as affectionate and ambitious. He was accepted into law school and cultivated an image of success. In the other, darker life, Bundy was a predator. He nurtured violent fantasies, often involving domination, rape, and control. He studied women's behaviors carefully, noting their vulnerabilities. His good looks and confidence allowed him to move unnoticed through society. He learned how to mimic empathy, how to fake sincerity, and how to make people trust him. That ability to appear normal was his greatest weapon. It was this mask of normalcy that would later allow him to lure dozens of unsuspecting women to their deaths. By 1974, Bundy's fantasies turned into reality. In Washington and Oregon, young women began vanishing without a trace. Most were college students, attractive, with long, dark hair parted in the middle, a chillingly consistent pattern. Bundy's methods were disturbingly clever. He often wore a fake cast or arm sling, pretending to struggle with heavy books or packages. With a polite smile, he asked women for help carrying them to his Volkswagen Beetle. Once they leaned in, he attacked, striking them unconscious with a crowbar before binding and abducting them. He drove them to remote wilderness areas, where he raped and murdered them. But his cruelty didn't end there. Bundy returned to the crime scenes for weeks afterward, committing necrophilic acts with their decomposing bodies. The scale of his violence grew. By mid-1974, Bundy had abducted and murdered at least 7 women in the Pacific Northwest. Panic spread across college campuses. Women were warned not to walk alone, but Bundy's charm disarmed even the most cautious. He was the last man anyone suspected. Bundy's first brush with the law came in August 1975. A highway patrol officer in Utah stopped him for erratic driving. Inside his car, police found handcuffs, an ice pick, ski masks, rope, and a crowbar, a chilling toolkit of abduction. Soon after, Bundy was identified by Carol Duranch, one of the few women to ever escape him. She had narrowly fled his attempted kidnapping after he impersonated a police officer. Bundy was convicted of kidnapping and sentenced to prison, but he was far from finished. In 1977, while preparing to face murder charges in Colorado, Bundy made a daring escape. Acting as his own lawyer, he was allowed access to the courthouse library. From there, he leapt from a second-story window and disappeared for nearly a week before being recaptured. Just months later, Bundy pulled off an even bolder escape. He cut a hole in the ceiling of his jail cell, climbed through, and vanished. This time, he made it all the way to Florida, and in Florida, Bundy's violence would reach its most horrifying peak. On January 15, 1978, Bundy broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. Inside, he unleashed a frenzy of violence. In just 15 minutes, he brutally attacked 4 young women as they slept. 2 of them, Lisa Levy and Margaret Bowman, were beaten to death. He bit Levy's body, leaving behind a distinctive bite mark that would later seal his fate. He bludgeoned 2 others, leaving them permanently scarred. Then, as if driven by an unstoppable rage, Bundy fled and attacked another woman in her apartment nearby, leaving her for dead. His final victim was 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. Bundy abducted her from school, sexually assaulted her, and murdered her. The rampage was his last. Within weeks, Bundy was finally captured. Bundy's trial in 1979 was unlike anything America had seen. It was one of the first nationally televised trials, and the public was riveted. Bundy, ever the showman, acted as his own attorney. He cross-examined witnesses, smiled at cameras, and played the role of the confident law student wrongly accused. But the evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses placed him at the sorority house, and most damning of all, the bite mark on Lisa Levy's body was matched directly to Bundy's teeth. It was a landmark moment in forensic science. The jury convicted him. Judge Edward Coard sentenced Bundy to death. In court, the judge looked at Bundy and said, "You'd have made a good lawyer. I would have loved to have you practice in front of me, but you went another way, partner." On death row, Bundy played a cruel game. He granted interviews, hinted at dozens of murders, and strung along investigators desperate for answers. He confessed to over 30 killings across 7 states, but the true number will never be known. Some experts believe it could be as many as 100. Bundy's confessions were chillingly matter-of-fact. He described luring women, murdering them, and revisiting their remains with no remorse. His words revealed a mind consumed by control and perversion. On January 24, 1989, Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair at Florida State Prison. Outside the prison, crowds gathered. Some cheered, others held signs, and many celebrated the end of a nightmare. When his body was driven away, the crowd erupted in applause. Bundy was gone, but the shadow he cast would never fade. Ted Bundy was more than just a killer, he was a psychological enigma. He forced America to face an uncomfortable truth. Serial killers aren't always faceless strangers. They can be charming, educated, and appear entirely normal. Bundy's case helped revolutionize criminal profiling and forensic investigation. His legacy shaped how law enforcement tracks and understands serial killers today. But perhaps the most haunting lesson is this: true evil often wears a mask. And Ted Bundy wore his mask better than anyone. Ted Bundy proved that evil doesn't just lurk in shadows. Sometimes it smiles at you from across the room.